Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of USDroneCast. Our guest this week is Chris Tangey. He's a DP, aerial cinematographer, and location scout down in Australia. He's worked with some of the best directors in Hollywood. He'll share with us some insights and techniques that he has developed, especially to film wildlife. Like he's capable of getting really close to wildlife. And that has helped him land some serious work with National Geographic and other world famous nature series. We'll talk to him about his new film, Firehawk, where he filmed unique kind of birds down in Australia that have developed this technique around wildfire. Chris has won many international awards for some of his previous work, like Outback, including the 2021 AZ Drone Fest Best Landscape Award. But talking about AZ Drone Fest, our International Drone Film Festival is now open for submission. This is your opportunity to enter your work into one of the many categories that we have and be recognized on an international level. So head over to our website at azdronefest.com for all the information. But enough talking, let's jump right in with our guest, Chris Tangey.
Welcome to USDroneCast, a podcast dedicated to drones, aerial cinematography, safety, commercial, and recreation. So get ready for engaging discussions, insightful interviews, and expert insights from top-notch professionals in the drone industry. Subscribe now and follow us on social.
Hey Chris, thank you so much for joining us all the way down from Australia. I really appreciate you taking the time. Talk to us a little bit about where you live, because I know it's a little bit unique.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, our area of Australia is called the Northern Territory, and it's a big place. It's around about, I think, 4.5 times the size of Arizona, but we only have 250,000 people. So, as you can imagine, there's a lot of nothingness in the middle. We have sort of deserts below, and then up the top, what we literally call the top end. That's where the jungles and crocs and all that sort of stuff are. And in fact, that's where they shot Crocodile Dundee all those years ago. Yeah.
So were you born there, or how did you end up living there?
No, I don't know if you've heard of a sea change. Well, I had a sand change. I was actually in radio for 10 years and got pretty sick and tired of the ratings game and all of that sort of thing. And I just packed up all of my belongings and drove up here, not even ever having been here. And we're like 1,000 miles from the nearest city. So Darwin is to our north and Adelaide to our south, and then nothing really. There's no way to go east and west anyway. So it was an amazing thing for me to do, a crazy thing for me to do, but I've never regretted it, not one day in the last couple of decades. Yeah.
What attracted you to the area? Was it just the fact that nobody was around?
Yeah, a couple of guys I'd known had been here years ago working and just told me it was a really great place. And yeah, I was on a bit of a downer and just wanted a change of life. And I thought, well, you can't have more of a change of life than coming from Melbourne to a really tiny town of 25,000 people in the middle of nowhere. It's a bit like a Timbuktu kind of place. And as I say, it's just been absolutely amazing. Every single day is amazing, and I have never regretted it.
Talk to me about your career. So, because you had a long career in a variety of different roles.
Yeah, I was born on a farm just outside of Melbourne, and then the developers decided to come in and bulldoze it and turn it into a suburb, which also sort of, I guess, pushed me into getting away from cities. But yeah, radio, I started in, well, actually, I got offered a job out of radio as a television announcer. And after 2 days, they said to me, hey, you're not doing much around here, are you? This is a full-time job and you're just walking up and down the corridor, doing nothing for most of the time. Find something else to do. So I literally went and found a cupboard and opened it up, and it was full of cameras. And I thought, oh, this looks like fun. So I sort of taught myself camera, and then that went into, commercial production, news, current affairs, and eventually to location scouting, location management, and then cinematography as opposed to, news kind of stuff, and then drone cinematography. But I actually bought the original Phantom, and I just gave up. I said, "Oh, forget it. I don't want to have to wire my own gimbal and blah blah blah. I'm not that technical." So I actually just gave it away after the first couple of crashes, and we always have crashes, or prangs as we call them here. And so that was an interesting thing. But then, of course, the Mavic came out, the Mavic 1, and it was so much easier to fly, and I could concentrate on my cinematography. And so I might be a bit different to some people. I sort of see it as just another tool in the box in a way, how to get a camera into a certain position and how to make a certain move rather than drone for drone's sake, if you like.
Yeah, no, I think it's crucial, right? Like if we are cinematographers, it is just another tool. Like, okay, I can pick up a jib, I can pick up a dolly, or I can pick up a drone, depending on the type of shots that I want. But I think
drone can be both of those things. Absolutely,
right.
Yeah,
right, yeah. And I also don't want you to cut yourself short, but you had a really good career in as a cinematographer. Like you worked on some really big project with some big directors.
Yeah, I'm still working in that area, which I really enjoy. And well, Werner Herzog, he was the most interesting for sure.
No doubt.
I think if people haven't heard of Werner Herzog, you can almost forget about his filmmaking career and just look up on Google the 10 craziest things about Werner Herzog, including getting shot during an interview in the Hollywood Hills. Another time he hypnotized his entire cast in a feature film. He found, I can never say the guy's name. Is it Joaquin Phoenix?
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah, he followed him through the Hollywood Hills once and actually saw his car go over the edge at nighttime and raced down the hill to help him. And he was upside down and bleeding. And Werner knocked on the window and said, "Hey, are you all right? Are you all right?" And he apparently said, "Oh, you're Werner Herzog." So instead of sort of worrying about his injuries. So yeah, and the whole Amazon thing where he took Mick Jagger out into the Amazon for 4 years and he got sick of it and got malaria, literally. But anyway, people should have a read up about him. But the thing with Werner when he's directing you is his most common thing is keep going, just keep going. And I love long shots, so we got on really well because he just wants, and to me, and I think he agreed, the most powerful movement a drone can make, or the most powerful shot, is actually just simply moving forward, because that's how our minds imagine flying. When you're dreaming, that's the way you fly. So that's something to always remember. If you're getting shots in any particular location, make sure you always get that one as well.
Yeah, I'm so jealous. I took his master class. I don't know if you're familiar with his master class, but it was by far the best money I've ever spent on learning some of my craft, because he's unbelievably talented, but he's also such a teacher. And so his masterclass is out of this world. I'm not getting paid. I'm not receiving anything. I'm just saying that like it was really, really good. So I'm actually really jealous that you get to work with him.
Yeah. Well, he's cerebral. He thinks out of both sides of the brain all of the time. And he's an absolute gentleman and fantastic to work. It's sort of, sometimes it's the things he doesn't say rather than what he does say. So he understands that for every shot, it's just as important as what you leave out as what you have in.
What are some other things that you picked up from working with him or some other big directors out there or DPs? What are some of the things that influenced you?
Humility. The old school people like Russell Boyd, ASC. I worked with him on a Tourism Australia global television commercial, and I was doing the drone for him, and he was 77 at that stage. He left a message on my phone. This is the message. He said, "Chris, it's Russ here. I'm the camera operator for next week. Could you give me a call, please?" And that was it. And I'm going, because I was like, whoa, Russell Boyd, I'm going to work for Russell Boyd. And that's the humility these people had. And I think we can all learn a lot from that. I often see things on drone forums and whatever saying, "Oh, have a look at my wonderful shot of this, which is absolutely majestic and it's the best shot ever taken." I go, okay, maybe that's our decision to decide that. No?
Yeah, there's a lot out there, so it's kind of tricky for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your approach, especially in using movement, right? How do you go, like you talked about the moving forward with drone, but how do you approach moving the camera? What's kind of your thoughts behind why or when you should move that camera?
Well, there's probably two different circumstances. One is when you just have to get the shot.
Right.
It's more like a news kind of choice. Something's happening in front of you, you just got to get it, grab it. But if you do have the opportunity, and sometimes you can even have it with wildlife, is to rehearse the shot. There's an Australian comedian here who used to say the best ad lib is a rehearsed ad lib, and it kind of is. It's if you can rehearse that move and be happy with the shot, then take the shot. Don't just fly around wildly and think in shots. You just don't roll and hope that you're going to get something. You got to think in 10 to 20-second shots generally, unless it, as I say, unless it lives longer than that. If the shot deserves a longer run, then do it. If it deserves 40 seconds, 60 seconds, do it, because you can never go back. A lot of the time, you can never go back to these locations, particularly in that light. So you're better off to just grab it now, and if it fills up more drives, then so what? But you're much better off to have more than less to a point. It's always the juggling between how much data or data, however they say it, you have on your drives and the backup thing, because I have to back up twice at least, and one of them is physically elsewhere. I keep it out of the building. Another thing I do, and I'm probably getting off the track here, but another thing I do, I often get in before I dump it onto a drive. I actually trim each clip to where I want it, and then throw the rest of it out. So that's an efficient way to try and keep your data under control.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about this film that you have, Firehawks. First of all, introduce us to Firehawks, because I saw your film, but I had no idea that those hawks existed and the particularity of what they do. So talk to me about those particular birds and what they like doing.
Yeah, well, there's 3 species of raptor in Australia, and they're all kites. And they all they've been observed by so many people. It's not an urban myth or whatever. It actually happens. But they pick up flaming sticks and fly outwards from the fire and drop them and start other fires, because it's in their interest to get a lot of activity going. So what happens is the insects and moths and all sorts of things come out of the grass once the fire comes, and also lizards and all sorts of stuff come out in the front of the fire. And another unique thing about these birds is that they can feed on the wing. So they'll actually grab something out of midair and throw it straight into their mouth as they're flying. So they can continually feed stuff into their mouths. So it's become a bit of a holy grail for a lot of people, and for me as well, to try and get these guys actually doing what they do. I've even been talking to, basically the top natural history people in the world about how a plan to do it. And we're thinking we need at least a long lens, like the 50 to 1000 Canon, which they use for everything, and have at least one drone in the air, and preferably with the longer focal length as well.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say that Firehawks, it was very opportunistic for me, and it wasn't all shot on the same day. I must admit, I chopped down the cherry tree. It was actually about, it was just a fire in my own valley where I live. And I knew that it was uncontrolled. There were no fire people there. And I'd heard on a forum locally that the fire brigade knew about it, but said, look, we're just going to let it run, which is what they do quite a lot out here. And if it looks like it's going to endanger anyone, then we'll come and do something about it. But otherwise, we'll just let it burn, because often fires here are helpful to the environment. They actually trigger things to grow and all that kind of thing. So anyway, I got the drone out. I shot the firehawks in action. And then it occurred to me that, it's also affecting the rock wallabies and things up above, because you could see the fire going up into the thing. So I went back and shot reactions from rock wallabies and so on, and what are called Euros, which are the mid-size, sort of mid between a kangaroo and a wallaby, and then cut it together as if it was a real threat on the day. But often natural history people do that anyway. They don't work to a script. So
yeah.
but
And
I just really enjoyed having a go at it, trying it.
Yeah, no, and obviously the movie is amazing. Like, the shots are great, and you're right. Like, the reaction of the wallabies it's unbelievable. Like, even how well it looks like you're getting close. So talk to me about your interaction with the wildlife, and kind of how you interact with a drone that could be threatening or loud or whatever, or how do you start that process of working with wildlife? Because there's some shots in there too where you're like flying in the middle of birds flying around, and it's scary. Like, from a drone perspective, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is not a safe place for the birds or the drone.
Yeah. Well, there's two things again, I think. One is I recommend generally, if you're approaching wildlife, particularly a bird in a tree or an animal on a rock or whatever, using at least half your battery in the approach. The rest of it, you'll get the shot. Don't worry about it. But if you don't do that, you probably won't get the shot anyway. So it's all about really, really, really slowly moving in. And also don't do quick things with the joystick. Don't, because the revs, it can affect the animal's reaction. So they hear the and that's not what you want to do. You want to be literally leaning very, very gently on the joystick as you approach, then stop and let them have a look at you and get used to you and all of that, and then you can think about your moves. You might want to do a peel around, you might want to do another slow approach as you're rolling, or something like that. With those particular birds you're talking about, they're called corellas, and I actually have had experience with them all over Australia, like geographically the equivalent of the area of the continental United States. So I sort of know these birds. And generally, you can't categorize a specific species to react in any particular way. But these particular birds, called corellas, they're a kind of cockatoo, are fascinated by drones. And I've found this all over Australia. So I knew on that occasion, where I came across about 5,000 of them in these dead trees, that they were likely to come and have a look at me. So I started a course deliberately towards the sun, because I wanted to backlight them, but a gentle curve in. So again, very, very slowly. I mean, as slow as the Mavic 3 can go. And then a gentle curve. So leaning, as I say, on the sticks again. And sure enough, they flooded off. In fact, I've got a long version I could send you privately anyway, or we can put a link up or something of the entire sequence, where I think it's about 2 minutes long of what I was actually doing. And then I came in slowly, and it looked like they sort of flew away. The big section of birds in front of me just went. But in fact, they were coming up behind me, and eventually you'll see them join me, and they're actually treating me as a fellow bird, if you like, and on the same level, and not scared at all, really. And my thing about birds is that if they're not running into each other, they're not going to run into me. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, no doubt. It makes for an amazing shot. I mean, that shot was, I just thought it was phenomenal. So it looked really, really cool. So I guess I'll have to try that of slowly creeping in and see if we can get there. But yeah,
don't try it with
awesome.
Chris. Don't try it with eagles.
No.
They will take you out, and so will buzzards. But the thing, as I understand it, with the eagles at least, is they have sort of armor plating on their legs. So if they do make a mistake, at least it won't hurt them, and that's the good thing. But I think we all need to just be really careful and gentle with what we do when we're near wildlife. And as I think I mentioned to you once before, I don't think FPV necessarily and wildlife are a good combo. I think it's all about being gentle.
Yeah, is that have you played around with that type of flying, or do you stick around with just the cine drones?
No, I prefer cine. That's all I do really. I mean, I really admire the FPV people and the way they operate, and it's incredibly impressive. But they're two totally different things. And
Yeah.
I think that's what some festivals are starting to learn is, you can be extremely clever and all of that kind of thing, and fly really well, but it's not necessarily cinematic, and vice versa. It's they are two separate things. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's go back to the cinematography side of things. What kind of advice would you have for people that are trying to break into the industry? Our audience is mostly on the aerial cinematography, but again, I think at the end of the day, it's cinematography that people need to learn. But what kind of advice would you have for people to help them break into that type of work?
I've sort of been blessed in a way because I'm also a location scout, and so I get to work with crews regardless, and location manager, which is a different thing again. But I think really it's getting yourself on set somehow, and even if it's volunteering, and I know even these days it's hard to volunteer because they have insurance stuff and all of that, but really try and get yourself there, and you start to understand the roles of everybody. You can observe the camera department, see what they do and how they do it. But before even that, get yourself a reel. Just shoot everything all the time, and become an all-rounder. Know what audio is all about. Know what a gaffer is. Know what a clapper is. Like a best boy. Find out what all these things are, but also practice your skills. And, these days there's no excuse not to be able to come up with a really, really good reel with a pretty basic camera or even your phone, because, people around today, especially teenagers, etc., are just absolutely spoilt rotten with the availability of really good cameras.
I have four of those spoiled brats.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they're good. But if you see a move that you like, then copy it and work out how to do it. And there's always more than one way. I mean, you would know, Chris, also that if we're away from the big facilities and from the big studios and all the rest of it, we have to make do. We have to make a shot work regardless. I mean, I remember doing one with some Aboriginal kids on a community out in the desert here, and we wanted to do this choir kind of thing with a lift up of a jib and all the rest of it, and we had nothing. And so I actually hooked up an old mic stand that they had from the music room, and we put the thing on it and did this thing, and it looked fine. It looked great. And this is before stabilization. Yeah. But just think sideways. There's other ways to do things.
Yeah. Do you what do you think of the advancement of the technology where like those cameras are so good, especially on drones now, where I don't know if you feel the same way, but sometimes I feel like people don't have a reason to really learn, exposures and cinematographies and levels, because they're just pushing a button and it looks great. So I don't know if you feel that way, or how do you feel about some of those new cameras coming out?
Oh, I think absolutely there are people with that attitude, but it's not a good attitude. In fact, it might be best to go down to a secondhand store and get the worst little VHS camcorder and start shooting on that first. And if you can make that look good, then you know that everything beyond that is going to look good. But I think I've often said you can give everyone a Formula One car, but it doesn't mean they can drive it. It's a lot. At least half of everything you do is up here. It's thinking and planning, and the other side is the technical, and you really need both. it's not quite right because you need the aesthetic as well. You need the art, the creativity as well. But you really need to just be aware of all of these things and do it your own way, though. But
Yeah. And in your expertise and where you film, like some of those films that that you showed us, I'm guessing you're dealing with like the remoteness is also a challenge as far as having all the batteries you need and not just being able to just go plug something somewhere. So talk to me about the challenges that you may face in filming in some of those remote areas.
I have two battery hubs for the Mavic 3, and I'll probably end up with three. And I have 6 batteries, and I have a combination of AC and DC, so I can also be driving along and charging off one of the hubs. But by far the biggest challenge recently has been how the DJI are suddenly signing us out of the DJI RC Pro in the middle of nowhere. I mean, literally, I was up on a really big nature shoot the other day up in the Gulf of Carpentaria with some people I can't even mention because we all have NDAs these days, but on the biggest nature series you could possibly imagine. And I'd gone over creeks and rivers and through termite mound fields and forests and all sorts of stuff to get to this location to shoot at this location. I tested it before I left. I got there and it said, you need to sign into your account. I'm going, what? How am I supposed to sign into my account? I'm 50 kilometers away from the nearest signal. And, this can cost you real money. This has happened to me 3 times on big jobs, and it's just not acceptable. Like, why on earth do you have to sign into an account for your controller to talk to your drone? Like, hello, I bought the drone. I bought the controller. It's mine. It should work. I think there's even a consumer law thing about selling a merchantable item. In other words, what you buy needs to work.
Right.
They can't suddenly make it not work. This is a really big thing, and I think we need to pursue it.
Did you find a work around that, or how did you solve those problems?
No, I have to drive back. I literally have to drive back and sign in, and all of this will be academic in 2 or 3 years when Starlink comes out with a mobile or what. But at the moment, it's a real issue.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so where do you find yourself doing most these days as far as work? Are you DPing mostly? Are you flying drone mostly? Are you location scouting, or is it just kind of a mix of all of it?
It's always a mix of all because, and as I say, because of where I am, you have to have several hats and you have to wear them all. And if one area is slow, then the other area is likely to have something happening. I was just working on a series called Mother Undercover for ABC in the US and Pioneer Productions in London. And National Geographic From Above series, which is a train series. But a lot of it, it's not all. I'm working on a 12K project too for an art gallery. So this is a 50-foot long screen, 10-foot high, curved, and shooting in 12K. And man, that has been a challenge because I had to go. I didn't know, but in LA there's an association called the Giant Screen Association, which actually look after IMAX and all those kind of things. And I just didn't know where to go because they wanted to shoot in one shot these people dancing for an art gallery and have the horizon still stay dead flat on and I'm saying, well, what lens do I use? How do I do this? And I went to their technical committee and they basically come back saying, give this a try. So we ended up with some Supreme Primes, a whole series of them, and ended up on the 12mm, which gave us the horizon. But nobody could give us that answer. And the other thing we learned on that, and I think I can say this here, is that the Blackmagic 12K is not really 12K. It has a bayering issue on the sensor. So in the end, we've now gone back to stitching 2 6K Venice 2s rather than trying to do it all in one shot.
Well, Well, that to me, that sounds awesome. Like just every time you're in those positions after, especially after a long career like you've had, where you've seen a lot of things, but you're still now pushing the envelopes of what is capable. I think that's amazing. Like those are the type of things that I think I live for. Like is that the same for you, or do you just go like, here's another headache?
Yes, both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you got to be a little bit scared. You know, it's a bit like any performer. If they're not scared before they get on stage, then what are you doing it for? It's a bit like that. You do have to push the envelope, get to the edge a bit. It is much scarier when you're doing it by yourself and you don't have a department around you or a facility to blame or somebody. It's all your fault. But ask. That's the thing, isn't it? It's ask. Don't be, I don't care how good anyone is or how many Academy Awards they've got or whatever. You need to be humble enough, getting back to Russell Boyd again, to ask and to share your knowledge and to, keep it a community. And instead of everyone being your competitor, it should never be like that. I cheer people on all the time, everybody I work with.
Well, and I think it's a testament that you are here with us. Like we're this, small little festival that I still don't know today how you find us, but you entered your film a few years ago into our festival. I think this is, I don't know, is this your third year, I think, entering? And
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so from that to also joining us and be able to share some of your information with the people watching, I think that's just a testament to your willingness to do that. So that's great. We really, really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I think, AZ Drone Fest has definitely the potential to be one of the really big ones. And it's I can just tell that you guys really care, and you've got community backup, and you've got institutional backup, and and also, on the US Drone Fest level, you're heading national. So I think, honestly, it's all about attitude, and you guys have got it, and the aptitude.
Yeah, that does help to know what you're doing a little bit. But yeah, and again, like, for us, we've been really surprised at the level of films that we receive every year. It keeps going up and up, and it's really fun to watch. And for me, it's been really cool to be inspired by some of your shots and some of the story you told. I think you have 2 films this year in the festival. Both of them are outstanding. I think you have one in the narrative, which is the Firehawks, and then I think you have one in landscape, and just outstanding. So thank you so much for sharing those films with us, and we'll
It's news to me, Chris. I didn't even know they were in yet. There you go.
Well, I shouldn't say that either, because officially they're not. You submitted them to the festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not a judge, so I get to enjoy watching them. That's about it.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Chris. No, thanks very much. Yep.
Is there a place, or is there something, a project that you're working on, or a website that you want people to go to learn more about who you are and kind of what you do?
There's a new project that's come in the door. The guy called Jan Artus Bertrand, who did a book called I'm getting in trouble here. From Above. I think he sold 6 million books. A French cinematographer and photographer.
Yeah.
And anyway, he's contacted me about submitting for his new film, which I think will take a couple of years. And I think he's intending to cover about 60 countries. So I'm really honoured to be asked to be involved in that. And but if anyone wants to see some more of my material, it would be just to search Vimeo and then Chris Tangey, Tangey, and that will probably come up with a selection. If not, I'll go back and work on it right now. But it'll happen.
And we'll put the link there, but I'm pretty sure you're right. Your video is just Chris, so we'll double check that. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully one day we can come down and enjoy Australia. I've never been, and we would love to meet up for sure.
Thanks very much, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to US DroneCast. For more information about upcoming episodes and to learn more about our upcoming Drone Film Festival, subscribe now and follow us on social or visit us online at usdronecast.com.